This is All India Radio. In the weekly program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on Mission Life Combating Climate Crisis. The participants are Dr. Shrikant K. Panigrahi, Director General, Indian Institute for Sustainable Development, and Mukul Sanwal, environmentalist, and moderator Sanjay Jha, journalist.
Prime Minister had launched Mission Life and said that climate change goes beyond just policy making, and this Mission Life will make the fight against climate change more democratic, in which everyone can contribute, and it will make us all trustees of the environment. Dr. Panigrahi, what do you think is the main purpose when Prime Minister says that the fight against climate change has to be democratic and everyone has to contribute into it? What does he mean by that?
Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a great visionary. According to him, in eastern part of the world, particularly in Asia and especially in India, we are very particular about our culture, our value system and ethical matters. Individually, each of the citizens of this country are very, very particular about their own lifestyle. Normally, it has been taught in our religious scripts, in our daily day-to-day life, and we are very familiar to conserve energy, to respect the nature, and don't waste anything which is not required. And we have learned how to survive with minimal things instead of adopting a higher wasteful consumerism culture like that of in West. So Prime Minister Modi emphasizes through LifE mission that whole world, all the global citizens at this crisis of climate change should be very particular, and they should be very serious about their consumption pattern and take care of the resources of the planet and take care of the people. And environment doesn't obey the country boundaries. So anything on environment, climate change is global in nature. So we need to behave properly. We need to adopt climate-friendly lifestyle. So keeping that in mind, Honorable Prime Minister for about a year is pressing again and again about life. And he is giving the message, it is not the Indians, not the Asians, but the entire world. We should be very particular to adopt a climate-friendly lifestyle, which will not be responsible for emitting high greenhouse gases rather than minimal greenhouse gases, and have the world a better place to live in.
Mr. Sanwal, how do you see this development and this initiative?
I think the initiative is long overdue, because so far we have been looking at climate change, as the Prime Minister said, as a policy issue, as something that the governments and international community will do, or as something that technology will take care of. But then we found that emissions keep increasing. The date when there will be net zero emissions keeps getting postponed, and then they will change on the ground. Now, what the Prime Minister has really said is 5 things. He has picked on the key issue in climate change, that it is caused by anthropogenic emissions. It is the emissions caused by individual human beings. So what he has said is that let us not look at somebody else to take the action. Let us take it as a community or an individual issue. Now, why is this important? Because ultimately, as people shift to urban areas from rural areas, in the West, 80% of the population is living in cities. We are between the 40s and 50s. As people shift to cities, their lifestyle becomes important. Consumption emissions become more important than production emissions. Most of the population living in cities, their needs for electricity, their needs for transportation, and most of all, their need for cement and steel to build the housing and the roads becomes the most important driver for climate change, not just industrialization or manufacturing. If you see the emissions in the West, most emissions come from transport. It is followed by buildings, and it is followed by waste of food in cities. So the lifestyle of the individual becomes very critical. The third thing is that what Prime Minister has picked up is that it is a recurring issue. As more and more people will shift to cities, as wealth increases, their emissions, their consumption will increase. So in future, the trend will be of increasing emissions. You build a factory, the emissions remain steady for that factory. But when you shift to cities and increase in incomes, it keeps increasing. The fourth point the Prime Minister has made is that we should see ourselves as trustee of the environment. It is not that looking at the world in terms of geopolitical groupings or friends and foes. We are looking at people. When you look at people, you look at society, you look at community, you look at individuals, you can bring the world together around this theme. Because this theme is not special to India or to any other country. It is universal. And that comes to the last point, that this is part of civilizational value. About civilization, we have reused, recycled, and reduced our emissions. If you look at our history, we conserved water. The entire Bundelkhand, Telangana area, were rainfall deficient. Monsoon was not that important there as in the Indo-Gangetic plain. Water conservation was a part of society, was a part of politics, was a part of the temples and the forts. Similarly, forest conservation was taking place. It was not exploitation of forest for local use, which meant regeneration of forest. So in this manner, what the Prime Minister has really said is, let us look at a global problem in a different light, not in terms of a country's interests, but in terms of societal interests, and see if we can bring the world together around this theme. And I think that is the indication that a lot of heads of state of a number of other countries, including the United Nations Secretary General, has appreciated this move. They have already appreciated this move for a global mission. And as time goes by, I think more and more countries in the world and people in societies in the world will see the significance that let us not look for somebody else for the solution. Let us first see what we can do.
Absolutely. Mr. Sanwal, you have rightly pointed out the Prime Minister has launched this mission to take climate change from a policy room to the common man's life, because eventually we are the one who are contributing to the carbon emission. And if just 1 billion individuals out of the global population of 8 billion take up environment-friendly behaviors in their daily lives, the global carbon emission levels could go down by approximately 20%. So this Lifestyle for Environment LifE campaign, which has been launched by Prime Minister Modi at the last COP26 meeting in Glasgow in 2021, and the Prime Minister has rightly called upon global leaders to join the movement for safeguarding the environment by adopting environment-friendly lifestyle. Because what we have seen is so far in all the climate change talks, it is not translating into the common man's life. This is the first time such an initiative has been launched anywhere in the world. And no wonder many world leaders have congratulated Prime Minister on this initiative. In India specifically, we have also seen the Government of India launching a lot of initiatives to transition to the green energy and also electrical vehicles and many such initiatives. Mr. Sanwal, how do you see those initiatives helping us in terms of day-to-day life?
See, there again, the Prime Minister gave a small number of very important examples. He said, look, people who are using ACs in cities, you usually keep it at 17 degrees centigrade. If you move up from 17 to say 21, 22, even more, you will save a lot of electricity without affecting the service provided. You don't have to be comfortable. You don't have to keep it at a very low temperature. He also said that people use the AC at night and then cover themselves with a blanket. People use the hot water geyser and then mix cold water in it to make it comfortable to have a bath. He talked about petrol consumption in a car. He says you are going to the hills. You use a car which gives you 5 kilometers a liter. You can use a car with less power because it will serve the purpose as well as any other car. And particularly he pointed out that you go to the gym for exercise and you take an SUV whose consumption is 5 kilometers a liter. It does not make sense. So what he is trying to appeal to the different levels of people, particularly the rich, that if you cut down without saying so, I think the important point is that Prime Minister has not said that I am targeting the rich, but he is in effect, the examples he gave were targeting the rich because it is the rich who use more than their fair share of carbon or material. The poor man, more in population, but their lifestyle is already sustainable. They do not waste. They do not have the money to waste. They live a simple lifestyle. So I think the messaging has been very important. And as this idea is developed, I think the other countries will get the message that as we grow rich, we have a certain level of responsibility. He has also said that India's per capita emissions are among the lowest, below the global average, and yet we want to take part in this movement because as we grow rich, we will contribute more to the global climate. So why don't we grow differently from now? The important point that I want to stress is that in each of these examples, the point the Prime Minister is making is that if you change your lifestyle, the level of service does not reduce. You will still have a car, But in the city, the cars are fast. So go for a car that gives you greater mileage. Go for an electric vehicle. He's not saying don't use cars. He's saying go for fuel-efficient cars which serve the purpose for which you are buying a car, that is to get from one point to the other. The other point he has raised is that at the same time, the country, and that is an example for the other countries, we should shift from fossil fuels to solar energy, to ethanol, to hydrogen. The point he is making there is that just as the individual is important, the development and growth are also important. And he's not saying do not grow. He's saying grow differently. And lastly, he's bringing in the forests. He says, look, let us deal with nature in a more positive manner. Let us not treat forests as a resource to be exploited, but as a resource to be regenerated to help us in absorbing carbon dioxide and as part of our life. He has summed this up by saying pro-planet people. So linking people with planet.
Dr. Panigrahi, so
Yes.
we have seen in last 8 years, the Prime Minister Modi has initiated many green initiatives. How this movement will make P3 model more effective, pro-planet people, mission life? So this movement, when it catches, how will it be more effective?
It will be more effective by Jan Andolan, by means of people's participation. That is the key. Unless each of the global citizens are not owning the globe, not owning the planet cannot be rectified. Now the global temperature has increased 1.15 degrees centigrade, much more than the average normal human being can tolerate. That has amounted loss of more than 35% of the biodiversity in terms of plants and animals' life. That has reflected in the Red Book of IUCN. The ocean currents has changed their path. The cold currents has become hot currents. The air pressure belts have changed. The hot airs are not blowing from the direction it used to blow. Monsoon pattern has changed. Agricultural productivity has drastically gone down. Natural calamities has increased abnormally. So we are going through a climate emergency where we need very aggressive climate action. Aggressive climate action needs to be done by all the stakeholders. But unless every citizen of the planet doesn't become serious and think that it is they collectively as well as individually, they will be very serious to guard their own lifestyle pattern, and the emissions that is being thrown away to the sky could be minimized, and to choose the alternative route of sustainable living without unnecessary leading a wasteful consumption. These small lifestyle habits which are taught by our grandmother, how to behave decently and take care of the planet, to worship sun, to worship trees. That value system the entire planet needs to learn from Indians, and Indians also need to rethink and define their lifestyle if they are unknowingly adopting Western culture.
Prime Minister yesterday said that India has had a tradition of worshipping nature for thousands of years. The Vedas precisely mention the importance of elements of nature like earth, land, fire, and water. And Prime Minister rightly quoted Atharvaved and recited Mata Bhumiya Putrabho Prithivya, that is, the earth is our mother and we are her children. So in our culture, in our civilization, value for nature, protecting the environment is already inbuilt. But since India has taken the lead in launching this mission LifE, and it has been hugely appreciated by the world leaders and Prime Minister's vision of making it a democratic movement. Dr. Panigrahi, how do you think the West will react to it? Because in India, in any case, our carbon emission is very, very less. Our carbon emission is about 1.5 tons compared to the world average of 4 tons per year. But India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, is working at the forefront to solve global problems like climate change. How do you think people around the world will accept it?
Very powerful question. Indians normally lead a sustainable lifestyle and climate-friendly lifestyle, which is a part of our culture, as you told. Over years, which Honorable Prime Minister highlighted at Gandhinagar, Mahatma Mandir, where Honorable Secretary General of United Nations was also presented. The West knows what is correct, what is wrong. This is the high time all of us, irrespective of difference, without any difference between West and East, all of us, because we are going through a crisis. Planet is only home that all of us live in. If planet is not there, we are not there. So we have to make our home ready for survival, which is in the path of rapid deterioration and extinction. Our ecosystems are broken. There is no interrelations and cohesiveness among the ecosystems, which not used to be a case few decades ago. The Western countries know it very well, but they need to practice it. So if each individuals are serious about their lifestyle habits and mindful about the greenhouse gas and they are emitting or their personal carbon footprint per day and how they can reduce by adopting climate-friendly lifestyle, unless they are mindful, planet cannot be protected. Normally, it has human tendency. If I am not doing it, some else will do. Let others do, then I will start. But this is high time that will no more work. All of us to come together at the point of crisis and do the best that is most desirable for the protection of the planet, hence protection of us.
Mr. Sanwal, do you think some of our practices from the old time, some of our cultural practices, some of our traditions can also be incorporated and emulated by the world population?
See, there will be in two parts. One is that where technology comes in, we have to go for technology that is suitable, like the LED bulbs. But where the individual is concerned, for example, in our daily lives, the amount of temperature we keep, the AC or water heating, now that is where I think it is important that we look back at our ancient civilization. Remember that town planning in India has a history of thousands of years. So it is possible to cool a place by just air circulation in summer. This is what happens in the villages. People sit outside or they have cross ventilation. Now in modern design, because these designs emerged in temperate climates where the key issue was winter, where the key issue was darkness, rainfall. It was not the use of the wind or the nature to sustain life. They were more technology oriented. Now once this new thinking comes in, it is likely to extend to urban planning. It can extend to the way we spend our time together in the parks and other places. To look back at the ways we were living. Look at the Hawa Mahal in Jaipur, for example. The design was such that the natural breeze will cool it. So there were methods that had been adopted in our history culture where we use nature to benefit us. We did not want to conquer nature, live with nature. And I think some of those ideas will come back. Reducing waste. Food waste is a very important element. It has traditionally been part of Indian culture that you ate in the kitchen and you did not waste food. You took in your thali as much as you would eat, but you did not waste.
Prime Minister Modi has been leading the front. He launched the global campaign of One Sun, One World, One Greed. And Prime Minister said that he wants to increase the partnership with the world even more while strengthening its resolve towards such goals. We also saw that India is giving a lot of trust on the alternative energy sources. And today India is ranked 4th in the wind energy and 5th in solar energy. And India's renewable energy capacity has increased by around 300% in the last few years. And most important part and most sense of achievement is that the target of achieving 40% of the electric capacity from non-fossil fuel sources has been achieved 9 years ahead of the deadline. And we had also planned to put 10% ethanol blending in petrol. And that has also been done much before the deadline. So all these activities which we see clearly shows India is serious about tackling the climate change. India has also launched the National Hydrogen Mission, and that has really moved an environment-friendly energy source. And when India committed net zero in last climate change summit, COP26 in Scotland, Dr. Panigrahi, you think in this era when everybody is talking about climate change, there's an energy crisis, there's a cost of living crisis, all this, the importance of these initiatives launched by India will get resonance in the Western world?
Yes, I was with Honorable Prime Minister in Glasgow at the time of launching Panchamrut, which we have drafted in the interest of the nation. India's vision as a world climate leader, world leader in environment and sustainability, India's basic principle is we are, although not part of the problem, but we would like to lead and want to be the leader in finding solution for the planet's recovery, for planet's health and planet's survival. This has become our mantra. We are doing a great in renewable energy portfolio. In wind energy, in solar energy, we have proved our credentials and very aggressively, geometrically, the growth is taking place in installation of solar plants, which are historic and beyond question. In addition, the green hydrogen mission is also taking gigantic leaps and many projects are in the pipeline. I being a part of the missions, we all are very active and pushing the mission of the Honorable Prime Minister. And in Panchamrut, India has very aggressively committed to the world that by 2030, 50% of our total energy basket will come from non-fossil route. Non-fossil route is hydrogen, non-green hydrogen, solar, wind, all kinds of renewable, small hydro energy, in fact, biomass, biogas, as well as the nuclear energy that also is climate friendly. So all these energy basket that India assures to the world, we will achieve 50%, which is not an ordinary commitment. It's a very aggressive commitment. In addition, Prime Minister also declared 3 billion ton of carbon sequestration by increasing forest cover and land use change in agriculture and forestry. India is going to have massive plantation by creating sinks and where carbon dioxide and all other 6 greenhouse gases will be observed by the trees in their body, and India will be one of the highest carbon sequestering country in the world that we have committed for 2030. So this kind of aggressive commitment India has made, although per capita emission is abnormally low, and India has told loudly, India is not the part of the problem, but India is the leader in showing the direction and delivering solution to the planet.
One thing which is very interesting about Prime Minister Modi is that he has taken the initiative for the green from very long time. India has launched Solar Alliance, and we are very proud to be one of the largest solar producers in the world. When Prime Minister said the vision of LifE is to adopt a lifestyle that is in sync with the planet and in no way cause any harm to it. So we will see worldwide this new campaign catching up how you can live in harmony with the nature without disturbing it, without making much of carbon emission. Mr. Sanwal, what will be the impact of this campaign in vulnerable countries which are climate change affected? There are many low-lying countries and island nations which are at the brunt of sinking. So this initiative, do you think this will be caught up by many Western countries who contributes maximum carbon emissions?
Yes. The Western countries have already responded, Estonia, France, Britain, but they are being targeted by the Prime Minister in the sense of their lifestyle, cutting down waste, recycle, reuse. He's not saying don't use. He's saying reduce waste, recycle and reuse. Another important point is that the Prime Minister is also targeting areas like Africa when he is saying that why don't we stress millets? Next year should be the global year for millets in the world. United Nations has agreed to it because millets is essentially a dry land agriculture. Now, the Green Revolution came with wheat and rice, but they were water intensive, they were fertilizer intensive, they served a certain purpose at that time. Now a new revolution is needed for dry land agriculture, which is what most of the countries in Africa are involved with. Most of the areas in other countries too. Millets have always been an important part of our lives because they are drought resistant, they are more hardy, they are more nutritious. And he is giving the example of the International Yoga Day, which has been adopted worldwide and stressed by the United Nations, saying that, look, this involves the individual, it involves prevention, and it has to become part of our lives. And he has underlined this by saying that when the India and United Nations work together, they can achieve a lot. The essential message he's giving is that all of this together will go for a better world. With that kind of aim, it becomes inclusive. It becomes that everybody can participate at all levels, in all regions, in all countries, to think about these issues and at least come together with a talking point. Today, big countries are not talking to each other, so they need a talking point. They need an issue, which is a common concern for everybody. But that common concern has to be translated into the lifestyle, into the living conditions, into the situation in each of the countries. And this is what he has done. I think this is going to be a very important step, both for dealing with climate change and for India's position in the world.
Dr. Panigrahi, you spoke about serious intent India is playing in tackling the climate change. A very interesting part is that India is one of the fastest growing economy, and now we have become the 5th largest economy in the world. So to achieve a sustained growth, you go for industrialization, you go for urbanization. And then at the same time, India has become a prime example of how progress and nature can go hand in hand, because we have not just been growing economy, but our forest area has also increased. A number of wildlife is also increasing. So how is all that happening?
You are very correct. Industry or the economic growth is extremely important for survival, for jobs, for employment, and this is one of the key requisites of human survival. When we discuss sustainable development or sustainability, there are 3 pillars: planet, people, and profit. Profit means business, economics. So profit, business, or economics cannot be ignored. That needs to be balanced along with social and environmental objectives. And India know how to do that. And our industries are going through Government of India's rules and regulation and legal framework, how to achieve the higher growth rate with respect to and regard to the people, their basic requirement, as well as environmental conservation. Take, for example, there are many industries who are consuming mineral resources. To do that, they clear the forest which is above the earth so that they can mine the resources. But the guideline says they need to plant 10 times of the trees, assuring the 10 times more dense forest and biodiversity for doing so. And like this, there are a lot of legislation, there are a lot of cultural faith and beliefs. Everybody knows about Vaishnava communities and how they protect trees and animals, wildlife especially. Honorable Prime Minister brought 8 cheetah from Africa and planted them in Indian forest in Madhya Pradesh. So we are very mindful for enhance of our biodiversity. And because biodiversity conservation, combating desertification, and emission reduction and achieving climate goals all go together.
Dr. Panigrahi,
yes,
you are absolutely right. All of us, individuals and communities, can and must be a part of the solution of protecting our planet and our collective futures. After all, overconsumption is at the root of triple planet emergency of climate change, biodiversity, and loss and pollution. We are using the equivalent of 1.6 planet Earth to support our lifestyle. So this great access is compounded by great inequality. So schemes like Mission LifE is going to certainly make a huge difference around the world, and it will not just remain a policy making where people are talking about climate change, but it will become a mass movement, and India will be proud to have launched it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Mission LifE Combating Climate Crisis. The participants were Dr. Shrikant K. Panigrahi, Director General, Indian Institute for Sustainable Development, and Mukul Sanwal, environmentalist, and moderator Sanjay Jha, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on a mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.